welcome to the International Association of Near-Death Studies. Let me go ahead and introduce our speaker because I wanted her to have as much time as she possibly can and have time for questions too. Let me make sure I pronounce her name right. Ingrid Garcia Hansen Honkala?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay, good. So, and Ingrid, you're in Arizona, correct?
No, I am in Mississippi.
Mississippi? Oh my gosh, you're a Southern girl. When are you going to get that Southern accent? Oh my gosh, Mississippi. Oh my gosh, what's the weather like?
Just today, finally dropped to the 70s.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice. It's like here. Good. Oh, that's nice. All right, well, I'm going to get you to speak Southernese before it's over with if you help me with my Spanish. How about that? Okay. Well, let me go ahead and go over Ingrid's bio. Ingrid actually spoke this year at the International Association of Near-Death Studies conference. We have one annually, and she was one of the speakers and panelists. And if you haven't been, it's amazing. It's such a love fest. It sounds like a hippie thing, but there's so much love. Isn't it true, Ingrid, that at the conference, it's a different vibration energetically. It just feels like love, 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 love. I can't explain. You have all these people that have been over to the other side. They're all in a room. You think that might create like a big portal of love? Yeah, because it really does. It's hard to explain. You have to feel it. It's not like a thing you say. You just show up and you go, why does this feel different in here? And then you go outside in the world and everybody, then someone flips you off in traffic and you're like, So it's really not supposed to be like that. We're supposed to actually bring more love here from the other side. So, but she is, and I also saw that you're working with Reverend Bill McDonald with the veterans. He's a trip, isn't he?
Oh yeah.
Yes, I've met Bill before. So she's doing, and you can tell us maybe at the end, follow up what you're doing now, your speaking engagements. And Ingrid is also an author of a book called A Brightly Guided Life, and I want her to tell you how you can purchase that, what she's up to at the end, how to stay in communication with her. I know you can go to her website, which is Ingrid Honkala, and that's Ingrid, I-N-G-R-I-D, Honkala, H-O-N-K-A-L-A, and you can be on her newsletter and she'll give you updates, beautiful articles and so forth that she has on there. So let me go ahead and go into her bio. At the age of nearly 3, in her native Bogota, Colombia, Ingrid drowned in a tank of cold water. From that time on, she was aware of dimensions of life different than most people experience, including wise input from beings of light as she faced the challenges of growing up, falling in love, finding her professional destiny as a PhD research scientist and oceanographer. Overcoming many hardships to accomplish her dreams, she became not only a successful marine scientist, world traveler, and mom, but a mentor and giver of the light. Through her compelling life journey from Colombia to Europe and her eventual home in the U.S., and from a deadly war zone to underwater explorations at the NASA Research Center, Ingrid reveals how any human experience can be illuminated within by attending to subtle signals, taking intuition seriously, and forgiving even the most challenging difficulties. So I can't wait to hear this. She's phenomenal. So let's give it up for Ingrid. Woo!
Thank you. It's such a blessing and honor to be here with you guys today. So, as Tamara mentioned, my spiritual path started when I was very, very young due to a near-death experience. So, I was only 2 years old, close to 3 years old, when the accident happened. So, what happened was that at the time, I was, like she mentioned, I was born in Bogota, Colombia, and it was normal for the culture to have a maid that was living in the house with the families. Colombia at the time was a country at war, and it was safer for these girls coming from the rural areas to live in the cities. So she was a young lady living with us in the house. Both of my parents worked, and they left us at the care of this lady. And early one morning, my parents left for work, and my oldest sister, who was she was close to 4, and my youngest was just only 1 year old. So my oldest sister and I realizing that, after my parents left, the lady went back to her room, didn't pay attention to us, and we're like, whoop, let's go play in the patio. So we just decided to go play in this back patio in the house, and in a corner in this patio there was a tank. So there was the purpose of this tank was to collect water for hand washing clothes. So next to this tank there was a flat surface for scrubbing. Back in the day we didn't have a washing machine. So yeah, that was the purpose of this. It was just for doing laundry. So my sister and I went to the patio, found a ball, look at the tank, and children just get these crazy ideas. What if we play cash across the tank? And what I usually say people that people have the misconception that because I was born in Colombia, I come from a hot weather country. But Bogota is a city high up in the Andes. So the temperature very early in the morning, it could be around 30, 40 degrees Fahrenheit. So the water in this tank was frigid cold. Then we went on the tank. The tank was pretty big. It was about 900 gallons. So you imagine this was a pretty big tank. And so we grabbed a couple of stools. We climbed on the tank. My sister went on the flat surface, so she was a little bit safer. And I went to the other side of the tank, and the other side had a thin edge. So I just kind of like went on that edge, bending my knees, and I was leaning very precariously in this tank. But at that age, I was thinking about any danger. So my sister threw the ball at me, and she didn't apply enough force. And the ball fell on the water. And I thought it was close enough that I could grab it. So I leaned forward, and I tried to grab the ball, but it rolled on the surface of the water. And I lost my balance and fell into the tank. So as I mentioned, this was very cold water. So the first feeling when falling into this water was the sense of being freezing cold. So it was that sense of like, and I just realized at that moment that on top of feeling frigid cold, that I could not breathe. At that age, and in Colombia, to that point of my life, I never had been in a pool. I never had been in a bathtub. We didn't have one. So I didn't know that if you fall into water, you drown. So imagine that state of shock. What is going on? And while I was experiencing this absolute sense of horror, in just a blink, I went from that to a state of absolute pure joy. It was just like absolute calmness. It's just everything became still. And I put this experience had enormous points of contrast, because one thing about the tank was that this tank was made entirely of cement, and it had a roof. So it was the sense of the space was a very dark space. So one thing when falling in the water was, and opening the eyes in this space was like just seeing darkness, a space that was very dark. And once I went to that state of absolute joy and peace, in the middle of this darkness, boom, there was a light. And it was a light that came from below, and it was enough to illuminate the entire watery surrounding. And wow, this was amazing. The other amazing point of contrast was that when I was in the tank and I was drowning, I could hear my heart beating in my chest, beating like I could hear it in my head, beating like a loud drum, boom, boom, boom. And when everything stopped, it was the absolute sense of experiencing silence. It's like everything became still, quiet, silent. And it's what I call the silence behind the silence. This experience was such that later in my life, I would look for spaces that would bring me to that silence. And okay, now I was in this space where there was now light, there was now silence, there was now calmness. And then I saw bubbles suspended in the water. And it was when I just looked at the bubbles and I started to chase this bubble that I turned around and I saw a body suspended in the water. And incredibly, when I saw this body, I had the realization right there that that was my body. And I've had this feeling of familiarity. Like this was not the first time that I had been outside of my body. So it was this sense of like, oh, I had experienced this before. And then another important point of contrast here is that I was born as a very, very sick child. And later in my life, I learned that this had a purpose. And that's what I experienced right there, because at this point, I was in such a state of well-being that, wow, of course, I was born as a very sick child. I spent the first 3 years of my life feeling unwell. So what you guys think when I saw that body in the water, I'm like, oh no, I'm not going back to that. I wanted to remain in that place of incredible, incredible well-being. So what I did, just look at the body, I turned around and I left. And the moment that I turned around and left the body behind, I started to see flowers that were blooming from nowhere. And it was like something absolutely majestic. And then I was picked up and I started to be carried by these flowers. And I said to people, this is the sense of like when you're going back to the womb, when you don't have to do absolutely anything, you're just being done. And when I was in just this absolute state of surrender, in just a blink, I appeared in the maid's room. And I was looking at her from above. And she was lying on the bed, completely unaware of what was happening to me. And then I said to people, this experience is so vivid, so clear in my mind, that I can even remember the soap opera that she was listening in the radio. And then I just look at her and I say, oh, that's Maria. But just nothing. She was unaware, so nothing happened. And then from there, in just a blink again, I appeared in my mom's path. My mom didn't have a car at the time, and like I mentioned, that morning she left to go to work, and she was about 10 minutes away from the house because she was close. We know the time because she was close to her bus stop. And that was what she had to, the time she spent walking all the way to her bus stop. And when I appeared on her path, I saw her from above again, like I did with the maid. And I was like, oh, that's Mom. And guys, the moment I said this, my mom stopped. She did not hesitate. She did not question. She just immediately knew that something was happening at home with one of her babies, and she immediately turned around and started to run back home. And I saw her, I'm just like, whoa, But at the same time, I got distracted now by the realization that wherever I put my mind, I could go. So if I would think, well, the park, I would be in the park. At the end of the street, I would be at the end of the street. So it was like, I have realized that for me, time and space had vanished. And I could be anywhere at any time. So I started to play this game of going places. Imagine how fun this whole thing was. And again, like everything that happened in this experience, in just a flash, I appeared in a realm that was made of pure, bright, intense, shiny light. And this was the first time in the 3 years of my life that I felt that I was home. It was this sense of like, oh, I'm coming back home. And although I didn't see anybody, it was that sense of being welcome, that I was not alone in this space. And it was that sense of like, like if you left in the morning to go to work and you come back in the evening and you feel, oh, this is so good to be home. So even for me, it's like not even 3 years had passed. It was just like that. I just left and I'm coming back. And although I saw my body suspended in the water, up to this moment, I did not have the realization that I was not Ingrid. I was still having that sense of self. And then at that moment, I realized that I was not that. And that I was a being made of pure bright light. And that's when the sense of self started to dissolve. And I started to become one with the whole. And this even went further, and I experienced what I call the state of non-self, or what I call the state of nothingness. There's no really words to describe what this means. I said, when people ask me what nothing means, and I said, the moment I give it an attribute, a description, it becomes something. So it's a state that only can be experienced. But I would just, to give you a little understanding of this, the only way to know what something is not is just by realizing, realizing what is not. So I would say this is a place where there's no color, there's no meaning, there's no sound, there's no description, there's no condition. It's a state, the only thing I could say is that state of absolute presence and pure consciousness. It's the space of no thought. And while I was experiencing this state of being, my mom finally arrived home. And incredibly, like everything in this experience and in all these incredible experiences, my mom knew exactly where to go. And although we live in a big house, she directed herself to the back of the house. And my sister, like, and another beautiful thing is, and I will mention this later, is like I started to discover that there was purpose behind absolutely everything. And that the purpose of my sister being there was to show my mom that I for sure was in that tank. So my mom, this is another incredible thing, she worked with children and she had received a training on CPR. And so this is incredible how everything, the synchronicities in life, how we are doing the things that we have to do in order to help each other. So at that moment, my mom knew I was in the tank. She got me out of the water. She said I was completely pale. There was no pulse. There was no breathing. My lips were blue. And she started to do what she knew. She started to just do CPR, and she started to do everything she knew to revive me. And at that moment, I was so detached from this body that I didn't really feel like absolutely anything she was doing. But again, in this experience, everything was in just such like, was the moments of absolute stillness, and there was these moments where, again, in just a flash, I felt that I had jumped from the tallest building in the world, and I felt like I was falling, like there's nothing I could do to stop this. And I started to feel that I was being sucked back, like vacuumed back into the body, and it was this sense of like, no, like people asked me if I was asked, no, you have to come back, or none of that happened to me. It was just pretty much, there was nothing I could do to stop this. And I knew I was back in the body when all the feelings of coldness and not feeling well and the lack of freedom and all that was back. And let me tell you guys, I was not a happy person. From there, life became really, really hard. Really hard for me and really hard for my family, because I just didn't want to be here. So I stopped. I didn't want to eat. I didn't want to talk to others. I was feeling very angry. And what happened was that I came back with an awareness I didn't have before. And when I look at my parents, I didn't feel them as my parents. I felt them as my equal. And when I saw myself, I had experienced oneness. So when I had experienced myself as a being of light. So when I saw myself, I realized I'm not this baby. I am not this body. And I would just look at myself in the mirror, and I would just scream out loud, and I would just pull my hair off, and I would just go to my mom crying and say, you don't understand, this is not me. This is not my name, and I should not be here. So imagine my poor mom, my parents were like, wow. They didn't know how to deal with this girl in such a state of distress. And the other thing was that I came with skills I didn't have before my NDE too. So that was, again, all this is what people are seeing, and is validating that there is a change in this baby, in this girl. The other thing is that right after the NDE, I started to have the ability to read and write. And I could put together complex puzzles, and I could resolve mathematical problems. So for me, it was like I would just be learning or looking at things and knowing I could do these things, and I would just have the feeling, it's because I don't need to learn, I'm just remembering. I'm just remembering. So imagine how hard this was, because for me, it's like I could not relate, for example, with other children. I would look at other children and think, what is going on with these people? They don't know anything. And I would just look at the people around, and my mom would take me with her to visit friends or like meetings with adults, and I would just look and say, wow, I can understand. And they would talk about their problems, and you know, I wouldn't go play with other children. I would just sit and listen. And when they were talking about their sufferings, their pains, their problems, I could understand what they were going through. And I would just be like, oh, I know this because I already have been there. So I had all this awareness. So life was really, really hard. I became very angry. I didn't want to eat. At the time, just to give you a little idea of my parents, they were very young. And it was in the early 70s. At the time, when there was not the internet, there was not all this information about near-death experience did not exist in Colombia. People were not open to these concepts. My parents were very young. The country was at war, so at this point of our life, my parents did what they could just to deal with this difficult child. But this is the most amazing part of all this, and is that the help that I needed at the moment came in the most miraculous way. And right after my near-death experience, while I was going through so much suffering and pain and these hard times, I started to experience, when I went to sleep, I started to have experiences similar to the ones I experienced when I had my NDE. And it was like, I would see different colors that I have never experienced in this physical realm, and movements and changes in frequency and speed, and changes like it going from fast and slow. And these were all things that were happening. And in every one of these journeys, I was being taken to the realm of the light I experienced when I died. And at the time, I didn't know, it was not even, this term was not even known, but I didn't know that I was having out-of-body experiences. And these journeys started to happen. And in one of these journeys, one day I was surrounded by starlight figures that were shining in all different colors. And then, wow, imagine, this was absolutely amazing. And in another, this kept happening, and in another journey, one of these figures shaped itself. It was a golden, bright, golden light, and it shaped itself into a human form. And it approached me, and it touched me. And it's when I said, wow, you are a being of light. So this being shaped itself into a human form, and it showed me, look, we are the same. That day I woke up and I'm just like, wow. And after that, after being in so much trouble, now there was something I wanted to do. Imagine what? Go to sleep. I was really eager to go to sleep. I wanted to continue seeing these beings. And by that time, of course, my parents found a new mate after all that happened. And this was a lady that, okay, my parents went to work and I wanted to sleep. She let me sleep. So I was sleeping a lot at the moment. But again, now we need the balance. This girl cannot spend her life sleeping. So it came now that one day I was taking a shower, and I was just feeling very relaxed. And this is an incredible thing, because people will think that because I drown, maybe I developed phobia for water. But incredibly, it was the opposite. For me, water brought me to see the light. So water for me became this space of absolute peace. Then I was in the shower and being relaxed and taking this shower when a blue, intense, shiny light appeared in the bathroom. And I was like, wow, you are a being of light, and now you are here. And from that day, I started to see the beings of light everywhere, anytime. So later on in my life, I realized that what the beings of light were trying to teach me with all this is that home was not a place. So I didn't have to be in that realm of the light. I didn't have to be here or there, because home was not a place. Home was a state of being. And how do I know this? Because when they started to appear here, the same way I was feeling out there, every time I was in the presence of the beings of light, I was in such a state of well-being that I started to heal. And now they were here, and although they didn't say or do anything, their presence, their love, their light was such that I started to eat, I started to interact with my family again, I started to feel joy. And then this was something incredible, because now I was pretty much going back to be like this normal person here, feeling that, okay, I can be here. But although I was starting to heal and feel well and everything, and for my parents was good, they saw the change. And when I mentioned that I was seeing something, or they thought I was just having dreams, or that I was just, or they were okay to see that I was okay. But I was still very detached from my name, and I was very detached from my persona. And this was something amazing, because I would be bothered when people call me Ingrid. And if somebody would do it repeatedly, I would just be really bothered. And there was a time when they were calling me to eat dinner and I wouldn't come. And they kept calling, and I would just like, oh, stop calling me like that. And then the lady was saying, so how should I call you? What is your name? And I would just go back to her and I said, I do not need one. So after one of these big tantrums, when I was rejecting my name, is when the beings of light started to talk to me. So when I started to now hear. And that day they sent me to bed because they were done with my tantrums and my things. And I went to bed, I was mad. And it is when the beings of light said to me, it is going to take time for them to understand. And I was like, wow, now I could hear voice. And they said, for them to understand that in the realm of the light, names are not needed, as you already know. So this was incredible, because now I understood why I did not need a name. So it's like, oh, okay, I'm not crazy. So this was such a relief. But they also said to me at the moment that all the experiences that I was having and all the experiences that I was going to have were all gifts given to me to help me, but they were not for me to keep. They was for me to someday to give. They said someday your experience will talk for you, and you will share, and you will bring these teachings to others. So all these that you're experiencing to others. But I was really young at that moment, and I really couldn't understand what they were talking about. But they also said to me that I had to remain quiet because people were not going to understand. But imagine, I was experiencing this absolute state of incredible joy. What is not to understand? Why they're not open? What is not to understand? But yeah, soon I realized that they were right. I was born in a country where 98% of the population was Catholic. They were not open to any of these. When I remember a time when I went to church and mentioned anything to our priest, he looked at me and he said, you better sit there and pray, because this is not good. This is for them, this was the devil. So it's like, okay, I realized pretty quick I had to remain quiet at school. And at the time, there was not in Colombia the type of a school that if you have these advanced skills, they would put you in a special program. No, it was like, oh, you know too much? You sit in that corner and let the rest of us be. So there was not a place where I could really show or I could really share what was happening. So I had to become really quiet really soon and realize pretty much I am on my own. But the incredible thing is the beings of light also told me you are not alone. And there's people that they're going to appear in your path to help you and to guide you. And we will be here with you all along the way. And they were right. When I started to school, I went to kindergarten. There was a moment where, because I couldn't talk, I couldn't say what I was feeling, people couldn't understand. So what would I do? Draw. I was drawing. So I started to do all these drawings where I was painting starlight figures. And I was painting all the drawings I was doing. They all had auras. And I had all these paintings, and the teacher looked at that, and I said, what is this? So she was curious because I was painting these absolutely everywhere. And one day she just looked at that, and she's like, are these the stars and the sun? And I was just being all innocent. No, they are my friends, the beings of light. So it was at that moment when they said, oh, we better call your parents, because they thought I was having imaginary friends. They already thought that I was strange and that I was awkward. So, okay, my mom came, and it's when my mom realized that I was really seeing something. And in front of the teacher, she didn't make any fuss or anything. And when we went home that day in front of the teacher, I told my mom, you don't understand. These are the colors that we wear, and these are my friends, the beings of light. Guys, I needed somebody to believe me. I needed somebody to validate what I was seeing and experiencing. And incredibly later that day, after all this incident at school, my mom confessed to me that she also could see things that nobody did. So she believed me. She said, I believe you. And she said that since she was 5 years old, she could see spirits. So imagine this incredible thing. I didn't know what spirits were. She explained all this to me. And this was incredible, knowing that somebody believed me. And later on, when I was 6 years old, I also started to see spirits, what we call spirits. And it's when I revealed to my mom that the spirits and the beings of light were not the same thing, because I felt it different. And it's when my mom realized that I had to be seeing. She thought I was seeing the same thing. And it's when she said, oh, I think you are seeing angels. And I said, Mom, but they don't have wings like in the pictures, because all we knew were the Catholic teachings. So she said, but they have to be some kind of angels, your guardian angels. So this was beautiful, because little by little things started to just kind of like become more clear and revealed to us. And it's when I asked the beings of light. The first thing I asked, like, what is with these spirits? Because they produced fear in me, and they said, the answer was beautiful, because they said we are all the same. The only difference between what you call spirits or you or us is your level of awareness, how much you know about who you are. And I asked them, are you, and my mom said that you were angels, is that what you are? And their answer was beautiful again, because they said to me, this was so pretty, because they said to me, we are what you want us to be. So that's how open and that's how compassionate is the universe. It manifests to us in a way that we can understand it, that we can digest it. So it's like that open, it just flows with us. And then from there on, people like kept appearing in my life. The next person was my grandmother. She was a person that she was very rebellious for the time, and she was this woman that wanted women to have freedom of expression. And even she grew up as a Catholic. She wanted to learn other spiritual teachings. She wanted to learn more. This cannot be the only thing. And she joined other groups, and she started to learn about other philosophies. And then she's the one that brought to our home. I was 8 years old when she brought to our home other teachings, things from that she was learning from Hinduism, from Buddhism, from just all kind of other teachings, and it was like, wow. And she brought the picture of a Hindu master sitting with a huge aura, and I'm like, oh, that's what I see. So now grandma understood. And when she started to talk to me in such a way, I was like, wow, grandma, you talk like the beings of light. She was bringing things about oneness and about all these energy and healing and past lives and reincarnation. She was bringing all these subjects, and I was like, this is incredible. So she started to introduce me to this path of spirituality, and learning about who you are. And by the age of 8, she taught me meditation. And by the age of 12, she brought me to the first Buddhist temple, and which was something unheard in Colombia. She brought me to this little temple. So I've been meditating since I was very, very young. And after that, many other teachings, books, and instructions, and people appeared in my path, and it was incredible. But what happened was, imagine just always being this child that is just so different from everybody else. But by the age of 12, I had the realization that I was not like anyone else I knew, not even my mom, not even my grandmother. I would actually sit in front of these people and talk about things they were not even aware of. Then later, when I joined other teachings of Vedanta and deepening into Buddhism and all that, I had these concepts in me, how it was possible. But I was always the youngest in all these groups where I was being part of, and all these. I joined transcendental meditation. I was doing all kind of different things, learning about all these mantras, all that. But guess what? I mean, in that world of spirituality and with all the, because at the time it was a very small group, it was always older people that was more mature, that was more in tune. I was always this young one. So at school, I could not relate with anyone. The friends in the neighborhood, I could not relate with anyone. So I was always this very lonely person. And I had 3 sisters. They were all very beautiful. And there was a time in our life when boys started to appear in our lives, and wow, partying, going out. And I just felt like this fish from fresh water into a salt water tank. I'm not like any of these people. I didn't feel like the sense of doing what they were doing. My whole journey was like, how can I know God? How can I know who I am? That's all I wanted to do. I wanted to be enlightened. That was what I wanted. And that's what I was learning in all the teachings, and that's where I wanted to get. But high school ended. I barely had any friends. College started, and that's when I just was like, I'm not wanting to be different from anybody else anymore. I'm tired of this. I want to be like everyone else. And this heavy feeling of being different started to hit me so hard that, like, I would say past the second semester in college, is when I decided I don't want any of this anymore. I want to be like everyone else. I'm tired of this. And one day I was sitting in a bus, and incredibly at the same time, there was many other hardships happening. So it's when I was trying to merge my spirituality with my daily life, and I didn't see how, because at that moment my parents were having a really hard time. They were at the verge of divorcing. Imagine we were 4 teenagers, all the hormones, my sisters having, like, in the eyes of my parents, oh my God, these troubled teenagers, all this is happening at that moment. And it's when I was sitting in a bus and I was going through so much trouble in my mind that I said to the beings of light, I wish none of this was real. And guess what happened? I was sitting in this bus, guys, and the bus started to dissolve. I was aware of all the constituents that made that bus possible. All the organic, inorganic, vibration, color, movement, everything that made possible this bus. Everything that made possible me, this space, like matter happening. And all this started to change, and it started to change in vibration, and it started to dissolve until I was in that space of oneness I experienced during my ND. But this time, I was here, aware. And it's in just, again, like it happened during the near-death experience, in just a flash, I was back in the bus. It was like, wow, what just happened? And I came back with two questions, with two very deep questions. I said, when did we stop being one with the whole? And how is it even possible to forget who we truly are? Wow. But I had a third question. At that moment, like I'm mentioning to you guys, I was not being happy with the fact that I was different. So it's when I asked why? Why me? Why this is happening to me? And it's when I got the answer. At that moment, I have put clear that I wanted to be like everybody else. So the beings of light told me, I've been talking to the beings of light every day up to here. They were pretty much like my parents, and they said, in 20 years you will understand. I said, what? 20 years? It's like forever and a day. But they said, someday you will pass these teachings to others. And I said, no, I'm not teaching this to anybody. I'm already weird enough. I'm not going, I just don't want anything to do with it anymore. And they said, yes, that's why you're not ready for it now. In 20 years you will be. And at that moment, it's when I asked the beings of light to please give me that space, to just let me be like everyone else. And it's when I explain to people, it's like when you leave to go to college and you leave home, but you know your parents are always there. It's not like they stop being your parents, that stop being home. No, I mean, you just left to go do your thing. So that's what happened, and that's how compassionate and how incredible is the universe. They said, yes, for now you will not hear us or see us for a while. Go do your thing, pretty much. And it just felt like, I was very sad, of course, like you leave home, you're sad, you're not going to see your parents, you feel anxious, everything, but it's like, yeah, now you also feel joyful because there's something new you're going to experience. But I also put the example, up to that point in my life, I have been walking in a room with the light on. Of course, I have the guidance of the beings of light. I have all this knowledge, I have all this clarity. What did I do at the moment? Turn off the light. And now I went to live a life where I had many troubles. And I have to learn to walk in a room full of obstacles with the light off. And that's our life of humans. And I encountered a lot of problems and a lot of sufferings, and a lot happened in my life. I became a scientist. Many troubles happened about money, about, I wrote a whole book about all the sufferings that also happened during those 20 years. And I reached a point, I went to live in a war zone, I saw death, I saw poverty, and I reached this state of that I have become so separated from who I truly knew I was, from the light, that I fell into the deepest depression of my life. And there was a moment, by this time I was 39 years old, so you see 20 years had passed. And I fell into this very deep depression. Of course, I forgot about the 20 years and all that. And I wanted to die. I wanted to kill myself. And it's when I went back to pray, truly pray. But it was not the prayer that I would just go and say, change the situation for me. It was the prayer that brought me to ask, please, God, help me see, because I cannot see. Be my light. Please bring me back to clarity. And incredibly, when you pray from this deadness, from your heart, this answer came immediately. And it's when I knew I had to look for help, and the help that I needed, I was guided to the right person. I looked, it was the answer at that moment, you need help, go to look for a psychologist. And I was guided to the right person. This was an incredible, open person. When I bring all the sufferings, all the story of my life to this person, he gave me the most incredible answer. When again I asked to the psychologist after I mentioned all these sufferings, they said, why me? And he gave me the most amazing answer when he said, why not? Wow, yes, that's simple. Why not? And at that moment, that was the switch I needed to go back to clarity. Turn on that light in that room and see everything with the eyes of clarity. And at that moment is when I put myself at the level of the cause and not at the level of the effect. So it's when I realized that behind every different challenge in my life had been a purpose. What was it? To go back, to turn on that light, to go back to my inner center. But of course, all these challenges and all these sufferings also opened the doors for me to be empathic towards others, to be more compassionate, to be more loving towards others and towards myself. Because when I was little and people couldn't understand all these awareness, all these teachings, I would look at them like, how you don't understand? Are you stupid? So see, I did not have that compassion. I didn't have that empathy. So I had to go through all these years of suffering all kind of different things to get there and to be able to relate with everybody, to anyone that was going through hardship, through suffering. And I knew that 20 years had passed when I had an experience similar to one I had in the bus. And at this moment, again, when I had that realization that absolutely everything had purpose, and there was nothing. I was again like incredible. I was in a car again. I was driving my car, and it's when I sensed that God, the presence of God was absolutely everything there is, guys. There was nothing that was not it. And I was experiencing this absolute state of knowing and oneness with the divine when the two questions I have asked 20 years before were answered. So it's when I knew that 20 years had passed, right there, like, wow, again, no time had passed. And remember, the questions were, when did we stop being one with the whole, and how is it possible to forget who we truly are? And the answer came, and it was, one never stopped being one. One never left the source. One just became distracted and seemingly forgot. And yes, guys, I realized how easy it was to become distracted and to forget, to lose that connection, to know who we truly are. So from there, it's been already almost 10 years in this happened, and that's how my life now, I've been devoted to see and to find and to live with the purpose behind things, to know that everything that is happening for a reason. And I started to ask the right questions, and I started to just pretty much living my life with purpose and opening to be ready to serve. And I even asked questions. There are questions that started to come to me. I even asked why my near-death experience happened when I was so young. And at this moment, my connection with the beings of light was completely on again, and we were connected. And they said to me, your near-death experience happened when you were so young. There was a purpose for it. It's because you were old enough to remember, but young enough not to be conditioned yet. I also asked, what was my near-death experience for? And it's when they showed me, this is absolutely amazing. They said to bring the message of connection. And then, like, if you remember, I saw my body in the water, and I realized not to go back to the body, but that was not what the universe had planned to me, because I'm here. And that's the reason why I went to look for the maid, and I went to look for my mom, because I was going to come back. So I asked them, then why did it go to the maid? Why didn't I go to my mom directly? Why to waste time? And they said to me, because that's what we wanted to show you, contrast. Look what happened when you went to the maid. Look what happened when there is not connection. She could not even feel you. She could not even hear you. She could not do anything, although she was only few feet from where you were drowning. She didn't do anything. What happened with my mom? 10 minutes away from home. The moment I called her name, connection, absolute love, universal, like unconditional love, my mom heard me. And she was the one that saved me from the tank. So this was beautiful because the beings of light said, Lord, when there's no connection, they would let you drown. When there's no connection, there will be war. Because I'm different and I'm better than you. So that was incredible, being able to see that behind all our experiences, there's a purpose. So this is what I wanted to bring to you today, to realize that the beings of light said to me, the purpose of time and experience is to help you remember who you truly are, is to know thyself. Is to go back and sense and realize that I am, that presence, that light, that source, that space. And from there, I started to accept my uniqueness. My uniqueness had a purpose, like the uniqueness of each one of you has a purpose. We're all here to shine the light of awareness for each other, even if sometimes we do it like a little hard, but we're all here. We're all pushing each other to get there. I put the example of the finger and the hand. Every finger is different. Every finger has a unique purpose. But what happens if I cut this finger off? Alone, it cannot do anything. They have to be together. They have to work in connection, in communion, and guess what? They are all attached to the same hand. It's the uniqueness that encompasses oneness. We're here to be the light for each other. We're not here to compete. So I invite you today here, all together, reunited in this beautiful meeting, to shine that light of awareness, to shine your light with your divine uniqueness, and to work together as the light that we're meant to be, that we are. So thank you. I am open for any questions. I don't want to take more time. I already took 15 minutes.
Oh my gosh, I could listen to you forever. First of all, before we do questions, can we show her a little bit of love with some clapping? Oh my gosh. Wow. Oh, that's so beautiful. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but that really touched my soul. So, I've had several near-death experiences too, and I was watching you speak, and I'm going, wow, I need to be a little bit more honest, because I felt that way growing up too. I had several when I was a child too, and I was always the weird child, and I was alone too. So it was like you were telling my story, so that touched my soul. Thank you. So you can't see me, but you can maybe feel that. Let's go ahead and take some questions. Who would like to have a first question? I know that you've got them. Okay, here's the first one. Go ahead. Here's Nicole.
Well, when you were explaining just recently, and I missed it, when you were talking to the beings of light, and they were telling you something about being conditioned. You weren't. Do you remember that portion of what you said? I missed that, and I know it's important. It was a key piece that I just need to hear again.
Yes. When I asked the beings of light, what was the purpose of my near-death experience happening when I was so young? And because this is the beautiful thing of this, there is a purpose behind absolutely everything. And they said to me, because you were old enough to remember, but young enough not to be conditioned yet. So they wanted me to be like that sponge that is not being soaked yet with anything, like, because at the time I did not have any idea about a near-death experience. I mean, I was almost 3 years old, and in Colombia there was none of these. I mean, there was not even a bit of knowledge about any of these. So yeah, they want me to be pure from any other concept, any other teaching. Even though I grew up as a Catholic, my parents were not like very into religion, so it just kept me very pure. So I was this complete open. This was this canvas that was new, that was about to be painted. So that was incredible. And you know, talking about purpose, they show me even the symbology during the near-death experience. Absolutely everything that we experience, we don't see it because we're distracted. Everything has a purpose. Like when they explained to me, you know that light that you saw in the tank? They said to me, that tank was not a light that was outside, that was your own light. Oh, what? After that, they say, you know those flowers that pick you up and carry you away? Those were us, the light. So it just presents to us in a way we can understand it. So, oh, what is happening? You're being picked up, you're being carried by the light. So everything that I started to just know and understand the purpose of all these symbols and of the experiences, and seeing that everyone is when I said to you guys, I put myself at the cause and not at the effect, is when I realized that everything has been done for me and not to me. Like every experience in my life has guided me to open my eyes, to know the true essence of who I am. So nothing happened to me, it happened for me. And it's when I also experienced the true meaning of forgiveness. It's the knowing that, yeah, what is to forgive if everything has been done to help you to become aware of who you truly are. Although sometimes things really, really hard happen in my life, but all of that opened my eyes to go back to the light.
That's amazing. So beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole and Ingrid. Also, I love, you really need to write that down. Things didn't happen to you, but for me. Because I don't know, I've never heard that. Have you heard that? And that's a new one. That I'm going to be pondering that, because there's a kindness and love in that. And when you look at that, unfortunately, as humans, we have to see the suffering and the side that sucks sometimes, so we can appreciate the beauty that's in the life. I wish we didn't have to have that, but unfortunately, that's part of our learning sometime. Anyone else? Questions? I've got a question. Tell me about when they gave you a summer break, your beings of light friends, summer break, and then they came back into your life. When did they come back in stronger, and was that an invitation, or when did that happen again, and how do you communicate with them to this day and interact?
Yes, so what I explain to people, if people ask me sometimes, like, do the beings of light summon you, you summon them, how this works? And I say, no, it's nothing like that, it's nothing like that. I said everything is energy, and everything works with frequencies, and everything is working at a different vibrational frequency. So I didn't talk about this because it will take too long, but the moment I disconnected with the beings of light when I was 19, that disconnection happened. It wasn't just like that day and boom, bye. No, I was vibrating too high. So I explained to people I was like a helium balloon. I was pretty much floating up there. So there had to be something that anchored me. So you realize incredibly I chose a career, science. That was something that was going to bring me to anchor. And life is incredibly beautiful, because after that, many things happening that were like lowering my vibrational frequency and anchoring me here. So even like the boyfriend I met at the time, not saying that he was about nothing, about person, nothing. He was just vibrating in a lower frequency. So I met this guy, and he wasn't going to be the spiritual meditating guy because it would not have worked. So who I met, a guy that had long hair, earrings, like death metal. I mean, I was listening music I never thought I would listen. I was going to parties I never thought I would go, but all these have to happen at the moment for me to lower that vibrational frequency. So I said we are like a radio. Wherever you put your dial is the waves that you're going to capture. So you want to hear classical music, you have to put your dial there. Or salsa or wherever a station. So that's what we are. We're like radios. And wherever we put with vibration is where we connect with. So that's what happened at the time. My vibrational frequency lowered down. I stopped going to all these spiritual groups. I stopped meditating that much. And there was a point that I didn't even meditate anymore. And throughout the years, when I realized that, oh my God, so many sufferings. I mean, guys, I was almost killed and murdered. I was almost raped. I was in a war zone. I mean, if you read my book, you just get like how this woman went through all this. But all that brought me back to wanting to want the light so bad. That is when I asked again. And when I asked with such intensity, again, a process happened. It was a process to elevate my vibrational frequency again. So I met this doctor who was very open-minded. He was in the line of he was a psychologist, but he was very spiritual. And I met also a lady at work that was practicing Buddhism, and I started to meditate again. And it was again, I started to raise my vibrational frequency, raise it. And when this, I've been already talking to this psychologist for a year. When I said, why me? He said, why not? And he started to, wow, now I was ready to connect. Then again, I had experience in the car, and I felt the presence of God as everything. So again, all these are processes. So it doesn't just happen in one blink. And nowadays I meditate every day. I do walking meditations. This is the other thing. It's not about doing, it's about being. Be that. Be that awareness, be that light. You don't get anything with sitting and trying to meditate 10 hours and go and scream at your partner or treat bad at your son or grab the dog. And no, be that light. To the point that when I was working with the Navy and with NASA and all that, there was a moment where I already had this awakening. I just stopped doing this job only a year ago. And I would go and say to the beings of light, what should I say or do to help these people to see what I see, to see the light? And they said to me, do or say nothing. The light of your awareness is all they need. Be that light. Be that joy. Be who you truly are, that compassionate, loving being, and you're already doing the work. So sometimes it's less talk and more being. And now you are the embodiment of that. You are the embodiment of the change. So that's how now I'm connected. Just being just my true self.
That's beautiful. I agree. Being your full self is a little scary sometimes. I've come out of that closet a while back, so I understand. And so, it's funny. I know I get things. I know that we're all connected, and the way I tell everybody, we can all get things if we are in a state of surrender and love. We all are connected to the divine, to the source of all. What are you getting these days? I'm getting some things. I know they're telling you stuff. They're telling me too. What are they telling you? Beings alike.
Oh, there's a lot going on. Nowadays I'm in the state of absolute surrender. I'm not like, people ask me like, what are you planning? What are you doing? And I said, at this moment in my life, I did so much planning with so many studies. Like I mentioned, I have a PhD in oceanography. I have traveled the world. I've been in 56 countries of the world, sharing spirituality and science. I have done a lot of stuff. So I have reached the moment where I am in a state of surrender. And the more I have surrendered, the more things are presenting. And I pretty much have my schedule full next year. I'm speaking in a different city every single month of next year until November. I am traveling, I'm doing speaking engagements like these, interviews. So things just are happening. And I am at this stage of my life that I am absolutely open to serve. And every time I wake up in the morning and I said, how can I serve today? And things appear in the path, and I'm being also more engaged with my family and with my son. And since I left my job, because it was a full-time job doing science, I have had more space and more time to write, to do all this traveling and to meet people. So yeah, I am just open. I'm open, giving, doing what the life want me to do. Just let myself to be guided.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. Is there anybody that would have any question? I'm surprised that Norman and Mark, you're quiet. Anything? They're usually, you look very both, everybody looks content. I mean, have you, one quick.
For some reason I cannot hear.
Oh, can you hear now? Can you hear?
Yes, I can hear now.
Okay, good. So, question I have, have you done any type of workshops or any, about your whole life, your travels, any kind of like an overview to kind of get people in a workshop way, what you've been through to where you are now, to open up and to just surrender? Have you thought about that?
Yes, that's the kind of work that is opening now for me. Until now I've been just doing only speaking engagements, but this is the next step now, creating a workshop where
I think this would
and I
be
already
good.
have ideas and I'm already putting things together. So yeah, this is the next step. I'm supporting ISGO with all these events online, and
Tell everybody what ISGO
and I
is.
have sessions with people, and all this is coming now, and I hope to have some good workshops planned for next year.
Okay, good. I was just saying that's something that maybe we could also talk about a workshop, and even with the ISGO, what the ISGO is, it's IANDS, it's online sharing groups, and it's just a small fee for a year, and then you get to do these workshops, and some are free where you just listen to meetings like this, or some that you can do workshops for a small fee. It's, $10, $15. You get to do workshops. So I think you'd be excellent at that, and I do feel like that would be your next step. The things that you're telling us are really like learning points, I think. They're very much so wisdom points. Would you agree today? There's some wisdom where I'm trying to think of these little nuggets, these wisdom nuggets, but I think this would be, this could be put in a form of like your statements you feel are true. And then expand that into a workshop where people could fill in and say, okay, on this concept, what do you feel that is to you? I think that would be great. That would really take it a step further than even today. So, look, you've been great. Thank you so much for everything, Ingrid. You're such a beautiful soul. We did record this, so we do want to make sure that you have a copy of this. And I just can't say enough about you. You keep doing what you do, letting people know that there is more to this life and that they should live their life with gusto, that light is within, and they don't have to look outside of that. So thank you. I wish you much love. Thank you so much. You can't see me, but I'm blowing you kisses. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you. And then we'll finish up with a couple announcements. I'll get back with Ingrid later. Thank you so much.